Please welcome Olivier talking about XCP, Xen Orchestra and CloudStack. Thank you.
There you go.
Okay. Thank you very much. I'm Olivier. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Vates. And I will do a kind of an intro on our stack and explains how it could fit in obviously in a CloudStack environment. So just to check first, who is aware about XCP-ng or Xen Orchestra in this room? Okay, that's normal. Okay, so nice. I will go fast, but first I wanted to tell you about who we are as a company. So, as I said, I'm the CEO of Vates, and Vates is a French company based in the Alps in Grenoble, but we have now people all around France and even abroad. So we are specialized in open source virtualization, and right now our headcount is around 40 people. What we do and how we live with doing this kind of business is by delivering our expertise on the code that you might use with our solution. So it's not just doing some incident response, but it's more than that. It's helping you to achieve what you want to achieve with your infrastructure. And as we are not just, let's say, a user of the open source or just repackaging it, we are contributing upstream to most of all the projects we are doing, basically. We also call ourselves a leader in server virtualization, especially in Europe. We are recognized by Gartner on that in the top 20 key players around the world, but in Europe there is only two in that area. There's SUSE and there's us, so it's pretty cool to be there. And we are also committed to work on building that European stack in a way that we make all of our research and development on most of it in France and in Europe. And for us, it's a way to be really independent in a way that's also one of the reasons why we use, for example, Xen and so on. We want to have control on what we do and not be, subject to potential issues with some project or the supply chain, as we call it, especially if you are using not open source software. But even with open source, having the skills and being sure that your supply chain for using whatever solution you use could be kind of guaranteed without any problems. So about the stack, so many people are aware about it, but just a quick recap. I like to say that the entire stack that we are building is kind of agnostic. So it runs almost on any kind of x86 machine, even a laptop, if it doesn't make sense. We have users that are playing with it to test it without having access to real server-grade hardware and so on. And we also have our focus, I would say, for the entire stack regarding security, which is really important to us. And I think it's also a consequence of using Xen at our core. Xen is one of the best projects with open source security process, not just the technology, but also the process. So we kind of kept that habit to be really secure when we build something. Obviously, it's easy to install, but there's other stacks that are easy to install, deploy, and update. But as being open source, we wanted to build something that it's not like your IKEA furniture. We wanted something that is kind of, I would say even an appliance, a software appliance, if you like. So sure, it could be used to make traditional virtualization, but if you are here, you are seeking for cloud-enabled capabilities, and since you could run CloudStack on top of our platform, it could also make sense in your use cases. So to recap on our stack, so we started, historically speaking, to build the thing which is on top called Xen Orchestra, and Xen Orchestra is, if you know VMware, it's like the vCenter thing for our infrastructure. So it's the central tool to manage and also backup, in fact, your entire infrastructure. So it's meant to be used by system administrators. Maybe it's not, the real goal is not to manage an entire cloud like you could do with CloudStack. So in a way, it's not doing the same things. It's a bit different, but that's your best friend if you want to have an insight on your entire infrastructure, know what's going on, make backup on critical VMs. You could have many kind of different backups, like incremental backup with any kind of refinement, like backup of backup. I will demonstrate some of the features a bit later. So it's a stack. So on the bottom, you have your physical machine, and on those physical machine, you install XCP-ng, which is using Xen as its core. It's the core hypervisor. But XCP-ng is a stack with an API, CLI, and so on. And that's where Xen Orchestra will basically control. So one Xen Orchestra to control the entire, let's say, data centers you might have, or clusters, or racks, or whatever. Coming soon, into each XCP-ng physical machine, you will have a small UI that will be embedded directly into it. So if you want to have a local management for node, for whatever reason, you could have an access to get the VM consoles and whatnot. So it's not doing all the bells and whistles you might have in Xen Orchestra, but it's really handy when you are bootstrapping your infrastructure, or you need to take a look quickly to one machine while you do not have access for Xen Orchestra for whatever reason. And in the middle, we are working on commercialize the hyperconvergence solution done in partnership with the guy from Linbit that are just in front of our booth by integrating link store directly into it and inside our web UI. So if you want to do hyperconvergence, you can achieve that by using the stack. So in few words, it's meant to be user-friendly. So that's why we spent a reasonable amount of time to create a nice UI so it's easy to manage as a system administrator with all the tools you need. It's modern because we also expose many APIs, so you could do some automation that you could achieve by other means, but it could be really handy in some cases. And more that it's integrated in a coherent stack, meaning it's one thing that could run your entire data center. And plus, on top of it, obviously, you could add CloudStack to get all the features you need in software like CloudStack. So also what's interesting is, for now, and to be entirely transparent, most of our new users are coming from VMware. It's no surprise. The Broadcom acquisition, which is really fresh, made a kind of a huge change in the landscape of the virtualization market. And the fact we are integrated and somehow you can compare the bits between VMware and us gave us an edge on the capability to migrate users. So, for example, and I know now it exists very soon for CloudStack with KVM, we have also a tool that is able to connect to an ESXi server, list of the machine you have directly from Xen Orchestra, and you click on Next, and it will do what we call a warm migration from VMware to XCP-ng. So warm because it makes first a snapshot while the VM is running, so it transfers all the bits to VMware, to XCP-ng, so the VM will continue to run on VMware. And when the full replication kind of is made, we'll shut down the VM on the VMware side and just replicate the diff, the delta, and start it on XCP-ng. So the downtime is really small, and that's how we could achieve this kind of what we call warm migration, because it's not hot and it's not cold, so it's kind of in the middle. So what does it look like? So I will show you very quickly so you have an idea, because I'm talking about it and it sounds nice, but show me something. It's better. And before doing that, I wanted to give you kind of the 1, 2, 3 on how to scale with the solution. And obviously, to scale, you need a software that is able to do everything CloudStack is capable for. So it's not complicated at all, because basically you have to learn or to decide to build your typical cluster, which depending on the size and you operate, for example, if you have an entire data center, you could create a cluster. I would say the sweet spot is around 10 hosts. So you could still continue to scale a cluster by adding more machines, but in general, you have one storage per cluster, one shared storage per cluster, and then you basically copy-paste that recipe to do that cluster to scale horizontally inside your racks, inside your data center, or even data centers, if you want to really grow very fast. So, and that's could be done by then adding CloudStack on top of all of this. And what we do on our side is being sure that 1 and 2 is done correctly. That's the kind of service we do, and being sure, as I said, not just to help you if you have a problem, but being there when you design the infrastructure to know the best practices and so on, the things that make sense when you use our platform. So now I will try to show you quickly what it looks like on the existing interface. So I will try to send the tab toward a new window and put it there. Full screen. Okay, so just to show you, so that's obviously, that's our production. So as we are selling the software, we are also using it for our production. And it's a rather small setup, because in the end, we are selling the software and we are not doing a SaaS ourselves or renting whatever. So that's our infrastructure we use to host all the services we use. By the way, we have something around 30, 35 open source self-hosted solution we use to manage our company. So if you adopt it, it is possible. So we run all those VMs. So the main view is the VMs, and that's pretty traditional way to see the VMs. I mean, you could click on a VM, get the information on it, access to the console. So it's pretty straightforward, I would say. But what makes the thing really interesting is the backup capabilities. So just to give you some example, and if you want to learn a bit more about that, the idea is, for example, again, a real use case is we do a backup of our entire infrastructure to another room in the same data center every 6 hours. So using incremental, it's pretty fast. In fact, let's show you the log. It's around 7 minutes. So we did that just a few hours ago. And every 6 hours we do that with a retention of 28, so it gives you roughly 1 week worth of backup. And so we could easily restore all those backups anytime, or even just pick some files that we did in all those backups really easily. So truly meant to be the administrator console. And if you want more resiliency, we also have a replication to another data center. And a replication is different because instead of, let's say, storing it into a NAS or something like this, the replication, we're sending it to another cluster on another storage repository. That's the word we use in XCP-ng world. And it means you will be able to start instantly that VM that is replicated to the other data center. So in case of, let's say, the entire DC is burning down, something that might happen, then you have the capability to start it instantly on the other side. So, and the last one, which is not set up already, that we should set up, is the backup of backup, the mirror backup, if you like, is the capability, for example, to, on the NAS where we backup, to make another backup with a completely different, let's say, retention settings, like for doing archiving for years. It could be just backupping those files to, for example, an S3 capable backup, and then use, I don't know, it could be compression, it could be encryption if you are not sure about the destination. So you have pretty much everything to be sure that your infrastructure is resilient even if you lose everything. And Xen Orchestra itself is stateless, meaning that if you lose Xen Orchestra, but you still have your NAS with all your file, all your backup, no biggie, you just redeploy a fresh Xen Orchestra, it's a VM, you connect to your backup repository, and you can restore everything from scratch, even if you lose everything previously. So it's pretty resilient, and it's meant for the admins. And in our case, that's why we have multiple type of backups. And again, to show you how small is our infrastructure, that's the number of physical machines we have. It's only this. For us, it's enough. But we have customers like Kayak, for example, from kayak.com, with something like 2,000 physical hosts across the globe. So we have customers with similar small infrastructure, but one with very larger ones. Depending on the need, for their own, for example, use case, they don't need CloudStack. Some of our customers are using CloudStack because they are, for example, selling the resources internally or externally. So it gives you the flexibility you might need in your use case. And we also have users using even our solution through CloudStack, or maybe with KVM and CloudStack, and with XCP-ng to replace some VMware cluster at some point. So it's very mix and match depending on what you need. And it's true open source. So in the end, in the conclusion, it's not open core. So in a way, there's all the features available. So if you want to get full feature of Xen Orchestra, you can clone it from GitHub. And if you want to use, obviously, XCP-ng, it's also fully open source. So there's no paywall whatsoever and so on. So if you want to build a POC, that's pretty easy. So that's it for me for today. If you have a question, go ahead. And thank you.
Thank you, Olivier. Any questions for Olivier? Thank you.
Hi. 2 questions, please. One, I see there's a premium trial period that will end in many years. So you said there's an open source version, and is that premium?
Sure, I can explain easily. So what you have is there's 2 ways to use Xen Orchestra. The first one is you go on GitHub, you git clone it, and you have all the features. It's usually people that want to test home labbers, anyone, but you don't have professional support for that because you can build it on any kind of operating system. So we don't know the environment where it's used. So it's really hard to assist professionally on that. So what we did is we created a virtual appliance called XOA. It's an Orchestra virtual appliance that you can deploy it in few clicks inside your infrastructure, but this appliance got support and a limited set of features. But in short, it's limited set of features per support, let's say, version you have. But again, you can enjoy all the features by git clone, yarn build, and that's it. It's done with all the features.
Okay, very good. Thank you for that. And another question, you touched on your VMware conversion process. Are you by any chance using Vert V2V, or you've wrote your own conversion tool from VMware?
So that's a good question. So what we decided to do, we wanted to do it directly from Xen Orchestra. So you have import from VMware, and from this field you could just enter the IP address, target it. So that's our code that is basically created to connect to the VMware API to understand what's going on, get all the metadata, get it, transfer and convert the format on the fly. There's no intermediate storage. So it means you don't have to get some space to store all your VMware files, whatever. It's directly streamed inside XCP-ng. It's a fully open source AGPL development that is available on our GitHub repo. So if you want to use that, because we support both diff formats from VMware, the old one before version 7 and the new one, which is absolutely not documented, but some crazy people at QEMU did something and we reused that code and created in JavaScript because Xen Orchestra is written in JavaScript.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions for Olivier? Bloody.
What was the reason you choose XCP-ng instead of KVM? And do you support both of them? I guess not.
Okay, so we do all the stack, including XCP-ng, and to roll back a bit, Xen Orchestra was initially a tool to manage Xen Server from Citrix. But when Citrix decided to close the features, the new features, or even kill some features that were free, we decided to make a fork of Xen Server. So that's why XCP-ng exists. It's a fork of Xen Server. So we decided to use Xen, and to answer your question, what is called the ZAPI, the Xen API, because it's the most feature-complete API that we found to manage virtualization, because all Xen Orchestra that could do from backup to create VMs, to create storage and so on, is done without an agent. There is nothing to install on XCP-ng. The API manage network. You could create, SDN networks. You could create, VLANs, LACP bonds. You could create storage, I2C, NFS, all of that through the Xen API. So for Xen Orchestra, that was the perfect match. So we could first develop this tool to manage everything remotely without, having to deal ourselves on creating an agent on the XCP-ng side. So that's why we started with Xen Orchestra to be compatible with Xen Server. But back in the time when we created Xen Orchestra, we took a look on the other API available, and frankly, at the time, in open source, that was the only one that is that feature complete.
Thank you.
Thank you. Vates.
Thank you for the talk. Just extending the question on VMware to Xen Orchestra migration, what kind of user story are you seeing? So one thing is you've created the technology and the product, but are you seeing actually people use this to
Yes.
migrate, and you have any data, any insights to share about the thing?
Yeah. In fact, now, since maybe 1 year, 1 year and a half, maybe 2 years already, most of our new customers are coming from VMware. We made, let's say, a success on making people switch from Xen Server to our open source fork. That was not that hard because we are truly open source and Xen Server wasn't anymore. But with VMware, we had a really interesting spike when it was announced that VMware had been acquired by Broadcom. It was in June, not this year, but last year. And the number of people registered to try Xen Orchestra exploded literally the same month. So it's not a coincidence. And now most of our new customers are coming from VMware. And to be fair, let's say the average VMware customer is coming with this. listen, we have to renew our VMware contract. We don't have the money to do it. We have customers like even universities like this using even, VX Rails setup, very expensive, fully integrated vSAN, all the bells and whistles, but they just can't renew because it's too expensive, and they wanted to use something that is similar in the let's say, the philosophy of the tool. So similar in a way, integrated, and the feedback we have is, well, I'm not lost. It's a bit different, but the components are the same. And with the tool, I could just, suck the VMs from VMware and deploy on XCP, and that's pretty much it. So that's currently, I would say, our main target right now. So,
Thank you. One more question in the room. Sven?
As far as I understand, you can import from VMware, but this will not be part of CloudStack then, because CloudStack is not able to see that virtual machine. Are there any plans to implement that in CloudStack so we can do from CloudStack?
I don't know. Our code is fully open source. I will be happy to share it and even give a hand to understand how the diff format is working and so on. I'm not sure exactly how those VM that will be created with Xen Orchestra will be visible in CloudStack. I'm not a CloudStack expert, but I suppose if we can bring something to the CloudStack project with that, we'll be really happy to do so.
Maybe a good chat for later over a beer. Anything else from the room? Thank you, Olivier.